Have you ever seen someone you just can't stop staring at? I'm a terrible starer, wildly inappropriate. But when someone or something captures my attention, it might be the way they're interacting with whoever they're with, or their voice, or the way they look, or something about their face or their energy. I find it hard to rip my eyes away. It's a bad habit that mortifies my family, and I'm not proud of it. I like to think it's because I'm curious, but others call it nosy or just rude. Vanessa Cranfield is one of the people who has been on the receiving end of my unflinching, inappropriate gaze. The first time it happened was at a local park about 15 years ago, and I was at a preschool picnic with my son, who was about 3. Vanessa was there too, with her little boy, who was mates with mine, and though we hadn't met at kindy, I recognised her from preschool as the most stylish mother. Actually, scrap that. The most stylish woman I'd ever seen in real life. Not stylish in a fancy pants, intimidating, designer labels kind of way. Vanessa just had this thing about her. She wore clothes in ways I would never have thought of, in combinations I would have never considered. And her energy, she just had it. The proverbial it. The not trying hard but just looking effortlessly cool no matter what she's wearing, it. I would be lying to you though if I didn't tell you another reason why I was staring that day in the park. Well, while our sons played with their fellow preschoolers and I lined up at the cafe, Vanessa wasn't alone. She was with her daughter, a little girl who looked to be about 6 years old and who had Down syndrome. I know, staring at a mother and her child with a disability was not my finest moment. We've talked about it since, Vanessa and I, and she's said yes, she noticed me staring. Thankfully, she shrugged it off and we became close friends. The little girl, who I would come to know and even one day take to school, was Gretel. And Gretel and Vanessa and the whole Cranfield's family would go on to teach me so much over the next 15 years. A few years after that day in the park, another friend of mine had a baby who was diagnosed with Down syndrome on the day he was born. Like Vanessa, this friend had no idea that the baby she'd been carrying had a disability. And as she struggled in those early days and weeks and months to process the radical, unexpected change in her life and the life of her husband and other children, I remember her saying, "I can cope with the idea of a Down syndrome child, but what about when he becomes a man? I just can't get my head around that and about what my future might look like, what his future might look like." Well, Vanessa's daughter Gretel is very much a woman now. She's in her early 20s, and her disability and the way she interacts in the world and what she needs from Vanessa and her dad and her brothers continues to change. I've read and heard a lot from the parents of children with a disability, but what happens when those children grow up? How does parenting change? And oh, one more thing. A few years ago, Vanessa started her own fashion label called South of the Border. If that sounds familiar to you, it's because if you've ever seen any picture of me anywhere over the last few years, I will have been wearing at least one thing designed by Vanessa, if not my full head-to-toe outfit. The woman designs my dream clothes. They're comfortable and fun, and South of the Border clothes make me happy in my heart when I wear them. In this interview, which she was super nervous to do, by the way, we cover a lot of ground. From Vanessa becoming Gretel's mother at just 21, to starting her own fashion label, and how her relationship with her husband Brett has survived some turbulent times that so often break marriages apart. Here's Vanessa Cranfield. I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time and you've never said yes. Why now?
Why now? Oh, I don't even know. I'm just feeling a bit more confident. I've got a lot to be proud of. I'm feeling okay in my personal life, I suppose. And I'm sort of just making myself get out there and be part of my brand rather than being behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll see me on Instagram more.
Good, because you are the best thing about your brand.
Well, yeah, I'm having to make myself do it though, because it's not something that comes naturally to me.
You've always been sort of incredibly effervescent in your private life, But publicly you've been quite shy.
I'm one of those shy people who covers their shyness up with loudness.
So you're an extroverted introvert.
Yeah, that's what I am.
Yeah. How's Gretel today? What's she actually doing today?
She's at college, which is amazing.
Is
so
she?
She's now at college 2 half days a week, which has been, it's taken us about 1.5 years, 2 years to get back to that point, or to get to the point where she's loving it. She's really proud of herself when she goes. I'm still spinning on this chair.
You've got to sit still. We're going to have to unspin you. When did you first find out that Gretel had Down syndrome?
The day she was born. The doctor told Brett first outside and he nearly passed out.
Was he not in the delivery suite with
No,
your
no.
husband?
They took him outside to tell him first.
And you were a baby. You were like 21?
I was 20.
Was your first baby?
Yeah.
And how did they tell you?
It's such a blur. It's such a long time ago.
Yeah.
I remember being absolutely shattered, but I just knew it'd be okay. It wasn't something that I thought, we're never going to get through this. It was just, it's going to be okay. The doctors and the nurses told us in a really good way, I think, just didn't give us a choice about coping or not coping. We were just going to cope. So the fact that they did that so well, I think, just meant we just went forward.
Mm. Did you know anything about Down syndrome?
No, yeah, I taught at the Rainbow Club, which is a swimming group for people who have special needs. And I remember I was teaching when I was pregnant thinking, I'd never cope with this.
Really?
Yeah.
And they didn't pick it up in any tests?
No.
There weren't such sophisticated tests back then, were there?
There was the nuchal testing, which is part of an ultrasound, I think.
There weren't those tests then, and so it was really just find things out. And sometimes when I explain to people life before the internet, it's not like you could be in hospital, whip out your phone and Google Down syndrome.
No.
There were no phones and there was no Google.
But I think it was a bit more common back then, like it was more known. You'd see people more on the streets who had Down syndrome. It wasn't such these days it's pretty rare because there's so much testing and the tests mostly test only for Down syndrome and not much else.
Yeah,
so,
and most people choose to terminate. Most people choose to terminate?
I have no idea on the facts and the figures of that. I just noticed that there's less and less people with Down syndrome around. And that's, and that's for me a sad thing because it's just diversity. It's not, and people would cope if they, had more of an idea of what they were coping with. They would be fine.
What were those first few days like in the hospital? What's your memory of those?
Yeah, it's 23 years ago.
I know, cast your mind back.
I remember being really well supported. That's the thing I remember most of.
Yeah.
All I can really say is I've been really well supported the whole time.
By who?
By my family, by the hospital. That's the fact that they did such a good job, I think, really paved the way for us to do a good job. I remember somebody told Brett and I that it was either going to be the glue that glued us together or it was going to rip us apart. And we never really vocally said, well, let's make sure it's the glue, but I think both of us sort of made that decision, to stick it together. I think that's the other thing. When I was 20 and my partner was 25, we saw each other go through so much pain. And I think after you've seen somebody you love go through so much pain, you never want to add to their pain. You don't. So we have a pretty friendly relationship, a pretty kind relationship, I think.
When you say you saw each other go through pain, is that the pain of...
Just the shock.
Yeah.
I think, the shock. And, it's just so unexpected and you just think, how are we going to cope? But...
is it like a grief for the baby that you didn't have?
100%. You go through the whole grief process. Like, I don't even know what the grief process is anymore, but, anger, denial... shock, grief. I'm not sure exactly of that process, and I think you can go back into it. I think I might have slipped back into it around when Gretel started school because, you had to fight so hard to get her into the place that you wanted her to go to. And I think there's a lot of rejection around getting into schools and places that you want your child to go to. And I think sometimes around that time I'd slip back into it a little bit. I think you still do. I think...
At those milestones.
Yeah, and when Gretel's had her setback recently, I think, I've almost gone into a depression with her at times.
They say that you're only ever as happy as your least happy child.
I I've never heard that.
Yeah.
And that's amazing.
As a mother.
Really?
And I think there's so much truth in that. So it wouldn't be surprising that you have not been able to be throwing yourself into work and being happy in your life in the last couple of years when she's had this significant setback.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about her childhood. I mean, you were so young. The idea of being a mother at 20 now, I mean, our sons
I know.
are 20 practically. Can you imagine Luca and Iggy becoming parents now?
I hope they don't, but
to children with special needs.
Oh, yeah. If they did. Oh, imagine. Yeah. And that's probably how my parents felt.
Yeah. Like my baby's just had a baby.
Yeah.
And did people treat you... we've got a mutual friend who had a little boy with Down syndrome about 15 years ago, Penny McCarthy, and she was in love, after the shock and everything.
Yeah.
She was also in love with this beautiful baby that she's made, but everyone was treating it like a death. Like, I'm so sorry. And she said she had older children, but she said no one ever said, he's really beautiful or he's really cute or congratulations, something as basic as that.
And I think probably because she could compare it to having other kids who didn't have Down syndrome, whereas I didn't really have anything to compare it to. So, no, I felt more like I'd lost a baby. We had a different name for Gretel. That name was just... we came up with that name because it was on The Sound of Music. The smallest child is Gretel. And it was on that Friday night when I gave birth. It was just a name that we sort of grabbed at and thought that was cute. But there was a name that we had all through the pregnancy that I would never call a child that because it's like I already had that pregnancy and that baby.
So you literally had to grieve the loss before you could celebrate the arrival of Gretel. That makes so much sense.
It's not so much a loss as just a massive adjustment of expectations.
Yeah.
You go from thinking you're going to have a supermodel, rocket scientist to people saying things to you like, oh, there's a boy out there cleaning the hall, he has Down syndrome, or, I saw a boy this morning at McDonald's. So there's your expectations all of a sudden. It's that, I think, that is quite the shock.
So all your hopes and dreams for this child.
Yeah, because you know what it's like when you're having a baby. You expect this baby to be,
That's true.
Nothing short of a genius.
I'd never thought that. Yeah. And in many ways you keep expecting that all through their lives on some level, but you straight away had to recalibrate all of those expectations.
Yeah, you like when you're pregnant, I think, and you're expecting a baby, you think of all your partner's best features and you think of all your own best features and you just assume that baby's going to have all of those best features.
What were the most helpful and unhelpful things that people said to you?
The most helpful thing was the thing I told you about before, the being told it'll be either the glue that bonds bonds you together, or it'll be the thing that rips you apart. And I think that was really helpful. There was a small amount of blame that was unhelpful, not between Brett and myself. He's really good at he doesn't blame for anything. He's really good with that. But maybe some of our family thinking, well, our genetics are really good. What's going on with your genetics? Yeah.
Really? So thinking, did you do something?
Just assuming that it was just a weakness in genetics on one of the family side. I think that's a really natural thing, and so they certainly wouldn't be so hurtful now, and they're really proud of us now, and they're really proud of Gretel now. But, they were older and didn't expect.
What does cause Down syndrome? Is it just a freak occurrence?
Yeah, it's pretty much a genetic accident.
Yeah.
So it's an extra chromosome in every cell of your body. But it's quite miraculous how much she can do, considering it's in every cell of her body. Yeah.
And does Down syndrome, as I understand it, exists on a spectrum in terms of high functioning, low functioning, physical.
Yeah.
What are some of the physical characteristics of it and some of the developmental challenges?
There might be 100 things that come in that you might have because you have Down syndrome.
Yeah.
One of them's a palmar crease, which is just a single crease on the hand. And I remember a doctor telling me that Gretel didn't have Down syndrome because she didn't have the palmar crease. But, you can have there's all sorts of things. There's probably 100, I don't know. There's quite a lot.
There can be heart defects.
There can be heart defects. It's basically a lottery, I suppose, how that extra chromosome is going to affect you. There's Yeah, just like anybody. There's a whole range of we're all so different. They're just people.
What information could they give you about Gretel and about what her challenges were going to be?
I think the best information was take it one day at a time. Just take it. She's just a regular baby. They weren't saying this is what's going to happen. They weren't projecting because you don't know. So that's been really good advice, just taking things one day at a time because, don't look at the person working at McDonald's because you don't know. She might end up working in a florist or don't limit her by expectations because you just don't know. It's like with any child, I suppose, just
trying to keep an open mind.
Yeah.
Do you think, looking back, it was helpful or not helpful that you couldn't Google?
I'm a bit of a lazy Googler anyway.
Are you?
Yeah.
Because you didn't. The only information that you had was what was presented to you. You couldn't go out and seek out extra information, really, could you?
No, and a lot of the information was quite dated and stuck in the 70s. We had Gretel in 1993, and a lot of the literature, the photos were old-fashioned. It was really, for me, that was quite confronting. But I was lucky when I did have Gretel in 1993 that there'd been all these women break ground for me before. I had to come along and fight for a place in school or do this or that because from about the 70s, women or, families had been saying, well, this is how I want to bring my child up. I don't want my child to be excluded.
I don't want to send her to a special school. I don't want to...
Yeah, I want her to go to school with her brothers or her sisters.
Yeah. What were those first few years like at home, just learning to be a mum?
Well, I think it was just learning to be a mum. And I'm quite rebellious, so I don't like to be told. So don't tell me anything. It's like you telling me to wear a cactus jacket this morning. I like to nut things out for myself. And I'm quite independent. If somebody throws a challenge at me, I'm going to beat it. Like I'm going to rise to it. So
I guess you had nothing to... You'd never been parents before. She'd never had parents before. You had no other children. So what do you remember of those early years with you and Brett? Was it challenging? Was it specifically challenging because of her? You just had fun.
We were fine. Yeah, the two of us were good friends. We are really good friends, and I think we just he was pretty strong, I was pretty strong. Changed his life. He had to get a job.
Didn't he have a job before that?
Oh, he did, but, he had to get a proper job.
He became a school teacher.
Yeah. Oh, he was always teaching, but he had to sort of buckle down and get a full-time job.
At age 25.
Yeah.
And then when she was about 4, you had another baby, your son, Iggy.
Yeah.
Was that a hard decision to decide to go again? Was it high risk?
Not really. I was ready. I'd gone back to work. I didn't want to have my kids spread out all over, although I'm so clucky now it's not funny. But I wouldn't.
You?
Yeah,
do you know what? It's your body getting ready to be a grandmother.
Yeah.
It is, seriously.
Yeah. Oh,
a
really?
girlfriend of mine told me that.
Yeah, I keep reminding myself that I could be a grandmother at any time.
It's also last chance. Your eggs are like, last chance.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, it is. It's nature trying to make you just squeeze out
but I just think, I couldn't take that risk, actually. When I hit 40, I went, oh, whoops, no more kids. Yeah.
Really? Because you had 2 more after Gretel.
Yeah.
2 boys.
Yeah.
But what was it like parenting them after parenting her?
Oh, they're so easy. Not that she's always been easy. She was like a practice child. She was so cruisy. They've been pretty easy, Iggy and Max. I think having her as a sister means they don't want to cause us any trouble. So they're pretty, they've always been good kids. They're nice boys. They look after her. They care about her a lot. And I think that comes from, at school they're always asked to do extra things with Gretel just, to ease her way because the teachers found that was an easy way to get her to do something.
What's her relationship with them?
So she loves Iggy. He's the one who lives overseas at the moment, so we FaceTime him, and that's like a highlight of her day if we do that. Max is so lovely with her, but she tends to be a bit mean to him. She picks on him a bit.
Really?
I think a lot of sisters pick on their younger brother.
It's very true. So she withholds her love from him, but lavishes it on Iggy.
I wish she wouldn't because it's hurtful and he's so amazing. He's just, all he wants to do is help, but he's backed off from helping now and he's not as, but he's going to have to help because as my parents age, they're not going to be able to help as much and I'm not prepared to, they're going to have to just chip in and if they have to have her for a weekend or they're just going to have to do that. No, they'll be fine. They're very well equipped to do that.
Did you ever have conversations with them about her and about, when did they become aware that she wasn't like other kids' sisters, that she was different.
Do you remember asking Iggy that? And he just went, what? That's
Iggy just looked at me blankly. Did I ask him that?
Yeah.
God, I was always inappropriate.
Probably about 4, I think he was.
I was
he just looked at you
Iggy.
and just went, it's just Gretel.
So they never kind of were aware.
Oh, no, definitely. Particularly Max, because he's copped more of her behaviour as, especially, he's been a teenager as she's had tougher times later on. Iggy I think they've just grown up together. I think they pretty much toilet trained together. They were always pretty close. She's probably jealous of Max because Max and Iggy are quite close as well. They used to sit on the lounge on top of each other pretty much.
Yeah, right. Tell me about what her challenges are in terms of her being verbal and her development. How has it progressed differently to how it would have if she didn't have Down syndrome?
Oh, okay. She did really well through school and was quite social and went on social outings. After school, she's not been so great. She has depression, a very severe depression, and anxiety. Now, that's common in so many young women. Not particularly that she has Down syndrome. She's just got a really severe depression and anxiety.
It's so funny because I didn't think that those kind of issues affected people with special needs. But why wouldn't they?
Exactly. Even I, as my mother, it took me a year to realise what it was. I didn't. No, it was
because everything you peg to the Down syndrome, you don't peg to
exactly
unrelated common health issues.
But anxiety is it's just so prevalent in young people. So I feel so stupid not picking it up earlier. That's what it was. So now we're mucking around with medications. They're tough because she can't verbalise how she feels on the medications.
How verbal is she?
She used to be quite verbal. She, spoke in sentences, paragraphs. She would always let you know what she was thinking. Now she's not talking. She's quite non-verbal. Every now and then she'll come up with something and she can swear.
Really?
Yeah.
She likes to swear.
Yeah, but luckily the F word, she doesn't pronounce F very well, so it's not as offensive as it could be.
You used to say that she had quite a few autistic tendencies as well, like repetition. She liked lining things up. She liked routine. Yeah. She was quite sensitive to sounds and stimulus. She
was never given a diagnosis of being on the autistic spectrum or having OCD. It's quite clear to us now that she does have both of those things. It was because her paediatrician at that time felt like she didn't need any more diagnosis. You've got a diagnosis. It's very hard to go into school and say, well, she's got this, this and this. Down syndrome is enough for them to worry about. So because we didn't have that diagnosis, we probably didn't get the help that we could have got with her behaviours. Even things like, I don't know because I've never really Googled it, but things like feeding, she's always craved a lot of bread and yeast, and that's something that I'm thinking they don't give people who have autism. I think they try to reduce wheat. There's something linked in the diet, but I don't know those things. I should have probably Googled it lately, but they're things that they would have told me, and probably if she only had that one diagnosis of autism.
Because she went to a regular school, the local public school, I remember you saying to me the process that you had to go through getting support, so getting extra teachers' aides and, extra support basically for her at school to stay at her appropriate age level. And I remember you saying that in those assessments you often had to hope that she wouldn't do very well.
And she never did. It was great. So
how does that system work?
So I guess you get more support with the more proven need. So, she saw a test coming. She still sees something like that coming and will just, I don't know what it is. She sees a test and just goes, that's it. I'm not, I'm not liking this at all. I tried to trick her the other day to take her to a doctor by saying, let's go to McDonald's. But because I'd done that 6 months ago,
she remembered.
She said, I know you're not taking me to McDonald's. She's on to you. She can't be tricked. She knows what's going on. She can't always express that she knows it. But, she knows exactly what's happening in the room. Yeah.
And she's always read at a very advanced level, hasn't she?
Yeah, she's got a really great visual memory. So we travelled a lot. We could have dropped her off on one side of London and she would have found the McDonald's that she liked on the other side of London. She always just knew where she was. She's got a great visual memory of things like that. And she still reads well and she still writes really well. It often surprises people, but she used to remember your birthday for you. She remembered everyone's birthdays. Yeah, she hasn't got that anymore. She's started to she's lost a lot of that in her severe depression, but we're hoping that we can get her back to that point.
My daughter's now 11 and we're heading into the years of hormones and puberty and I'm buckling my seatbelts. When your child has special needs and a developmental disability, how do you feel about those things? Because it's not as simple as, yay, you've got your period, yay, let's go and get a bra.
She managed herself really well through that. I was really lucky. She still manages herself really well, and I think I also was spared a lot of pain that you might go through with a teenage girl. So I didn't have any, telling me she was going to someone's house and going to a nightclub. I escaped all of that.
Yeah.
And I've been really lucky that, Iggy and Max have never really tested us in that way as well.
What about boys?
No, she's not. She doesn't like boys.
She doesn't like boys.
She wants to be left alone. Like she prefer to be around young. She likes to be around young women her own age. Yeah, which is lucky because I tend to employ a lot of those girls. So
in the shops.
Yeah.
So you've never had to deal with the whole thing about contraception and all of those difficult issues. Do you have a position on that?
No, I would judge that by each individual.
Case by case.
Yeah, it's not. I'd never have a position on that because everybody's so different and everybody can cope with something.
There was that Australian story a few months ago about the two Down syndrome. Did they both have Down syndrome? And they were in love and their parents really were struggling to manage it and wanting everything for their children and being very, very conflicted.
We all made the decision to not have any more sleepovers for the moment.
Our real concern was there was going to be physical contact and sex happening that we didn't think they were ready for and we didn't think we were ready for.
It's really unfair that my brothers and sisters can see their boyfriends or girlfriends or have them sleep in the same room together. You shouldn't be treating your 25-year-old like a 5-year-old.
That's hard to think that your parents have to get involved in that. But you have to.
Yeah. You've got to, I think, take it back to, remember before when you were saying, I was saying, there might be 100 things you have when you can have when you have Down syndrome. Some people are probably really capable of looking after a child with, while having Down syndrome. I don't. There's a little girl who works in my local supermarket who knows Gretel really well. Her name's Summer. She's just the most together person I've ever met. She's more together than I am.
Really? She should be your life coach.
She'd probably be a great mum. I don't, I'm not saying that I think it's a great idea, but, I think but as you were saying, there's varying levels of ability in anybody, let alone somebody who has Down syndrome, so it has to be case by case. I couldn't judge. And
Yeah. What can Gretel do for herself and what does she need help with?
Oh, we're talking about a different person than she was, 3 or 4 years ago. Since her breakdown, she's not as capable.
So say today,
she's really proud of herself today because it's taken about a year and a half. She just shut down about 2 years ago and stopped going to her work.
So there was an incident that happened that
we don't
you're
know.
unclear about and something changed and it precipitated depression and anxiety, you believe.
Yeah.
And she's lost a lot of her functioning in the world.
She has.
Is she getting some of it back slowly?
Yeah.
Bits?
Well, I think it's we're relying on medication and I don't think we've found the right one yet, or maybe we have to look at other ways of medicating. So it's hard to say. I think the depression medication, maybe she's not depressed anymore, but she's really flat. So I think...
So what can she do? Take me through a day.
Oh.
Can she get herself meals? Can she get herself dressed?
Probably not so much. She'll dress herself. She's really...
Does she like clothes?
Yeah.
Loves fashion. Does she love your clothes?
Have you seen those heart glasses? She loves getting around in those.
Oh,
she loves.
Does she love the stuff that you make?
Not really. She likes to be comfortable. She just likes to be comfortable. So she'll pick her own clothes. She, gets herself up and going in the morning. She has her own little routines that, she needs to put the day on a calendar and make sure she's got the right day. But the funny thing is sometimes she doesn't. She kind of skips days. I got 2 birthdays this year. It was really good.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Does she have a phone?
She doesn't cook. She hates telephones. That's why I answer my phone less than you do.
Is that possible?
Yeah.
She hates telephones. Why?
I think because of the screen on it. I think she doesn't like to see the screen, like to see herself.
She doesn't like screens.
She doesn't like cameras. Remember, we've tried.
She doesn't like having a photo taken.
She's getting a bit better with that now, but I think, maybe some of her breakdown was a self-realisation that, she wasn't the same as everybody else. She didn't have the same advantages, or they were all off going, like the people she went to primary school with. They've all, gone to uni, had children, some of them. So she's realised that, things are very different for the peers that she had at primary school. That could have been part of it.
Can she articulate that to you?
She stopped talking, eating, sleeping and toileting when she had a breakdown. So it was, she pretty much shut down. She's now back to, she goes out, and that's really good. But it took us, we really slowly had to rebuild her into leaving her bedroom, leaving the house. Now we go to the same cafe every day. We can have different experiences at that cafe every day. But
she likes routine.
Yeah, so we'll start every day at that cafe pretty much. But it's hard to go on holidays because that cafe isn't there. There's all different people.
I feel that way too.
I
really can sympathise with Gretel in that respect. I don't like going on holidays because I like my routine.
Yeah. I think, well, if you have anxiety.
Yeah. Routine is crucial for self-soothing and for self-treatment of anxiety. Yeah. Routine is really, really important. So
you'd think that you can have Vegemite toast in that cafe or that cafe, but it's not. It's part of it. It's seeing the same people. If there's people there that aren't usually there, or they do something she doesn't like, she's a bit put out.
When things go bad for her and she's unhappy, what does she do? How do you know she's unhappy?
Oh, when she's anxious.
Yeah.
It's a really physical anxiety. You can feel it.
Does she flap?
Yeah, she's tight. Like you can feel it in her arms.
Right.
I can always, when I go in to see her in the morning, I'm thinking, we're having a good day, because you can feel she's relaxed. If she's uptight, like if she's tense, you can just, it's physical. And you can't even describe what a meltdown is like because I've tried to explain to one of my staff members who just wasn't getting it, haven't had the best day today.
Well, you told me a story about when Max took her to the movies.
Oh, the movie. Oh, poor Max. Oh,
and
that
how
was
old
my
was
fault,
Max
though.
is 17?
Max is 17, so we tried to get her to the movies, but it was my fault because I didn't have money on my credit card, and there was drama, and it was just... The poor thing, I think he had to carry her home.
He had to take her out of the movie.
Yeah, he's a very tall boy, thank goodness.
And literally carry her.
Yeah. It would be like a tantrum, but she can't. It's not something she's chosen. It's not something she can control.
Yeah.
It just takes time and time and soothing to get her out of it, because she can't think herself out of it. She doesn't even know why she's anxious, I don't think. Yeah.
So she can't have therapy or counselling? Can she have counselling?
I think animal therapy would be really good, but she's not that into it.
You've got a dog called Astro. Does she like him?
Oh my gosh, she loves him. He sits at her feet all the time. So when I go out, he's amazing. He's just so aware of her. So as soon as I get up in the morning, he'll go and wait at her door and wait for her to get up. He's a companion animal. He's really good. And that allows me to go out, and because I have to leave her, I can't.
So she can be at home on her own?
Yeah, she's not going to cook anything. She's not going to, do anything dangerous. Basically, she's just sitting there. She'll be watching a movie, or she'll be, reading a book yesterday. So I can leave her in the afternoons. I try to do things with her in the mornings.
Yeah.
and then get the stuff
And then
everything else done in the afternoon.
leave her and go to
But
work.
Don't ask me to cook.
Can she go out on her own?
She was getting to that. She was nearly at that point. She was starting to travel on trains, but not anymore. It's different, and it's hard because I don't want people who have young children who have Down syndrome to listen to this and think, oh, this is the future. It's not. It's because she has depression and anxiety. It's, you know, she's got a whole lot of other issues to deal with now. So it's you know, that's probably one of the reasons I didn't want to talk to you, because I don't want to scare people. Yeah, there's a lot, you know, there's a lot. There's been many years, you know, it's not terrifying at all.
When we first met, I'll never forget, we were at a picnic. Our sons had become friends at kindy, and we were at the kindy picnic, and the boys were 4. And I was sitting there and I saw this extraordinarily beautiful woman, who was you, spoiler alert, playing with her daughter who had Down syndrome. And I did the most awful thing. I just couldn't stop staring at you. And it wasn't because she had Down syndrome. I was just so fascinated. You had the most extraordinary style of anyone I've ever seen, and you just had this magnetism about you, and it was like sunshine was coming out of you. And I just watched you with her, and she would have been about 7 or 8 around that time, and I just wanted to know your story. And you said later, you remember, and you were aware of me being all starey.
I know, there was this
I
weird
thought I was
staring
being
at
so
me.
subtle.
You were never subtle.
I'm so sorry. I'm terrible. Even my children now elbowing me, go, stop staring, Mum.
I think I was really lucky. I think I can explain that. I was really lucky to have such a big life lesson at 20. I had to grow up and get on with it, and, you know, I didn't waste my 20s. Oh, and I still went out. I still had a good time in my 20s, but not like my friends. I wasn't going to nightclubs. So when somebody tells me about, you know, McKady, who works for me in Bondi Junction, you know, I've never had an experience of her being a door bitch, because I never went to a nightclub, like not after I was 15 or 16. I just, you know, I grew up really fast, and I had such a big life lesson about what's important and what's not. And I think maybe that's what you were, yeah. I enjoyed being with Gretel because she teaches me every day. I learn so much. I still learn a lot.
All your children are beautiful. And your label is just... So we sort of lost contact for quite a few years. Our boys went to different schools. We sort of fell out of touch, the way these things can happen. And then I started going to this shop that I was like, oh my God, all these clothes are amazing. And I started buying all these clothes. And then one time I went in there and you were there, and I'm like, what are you doing here? And you're like, this is my label. And I'm like, no. And how did it come to be south of the border? You've always had the best style of any woman I've ever known. Like, you've always been my style inspiration in terms of patterns and sequins, but like 15 years ago, before anyone was doing that, you always dressed just perfectly.
I don't know. I haven't got a background in fashion. You know that. I studied costume and I did bridal. I think
that's a background in fashion.
Yeah, I don't call it fashion.
Why?
Fashion has built-in obsolescence. I want to make things that people have for years.
Yeah, right.
Fashion goes out of fashion. So I'd rather make something that's a bit different and that you'll love, and you might not want to wear it next year, but you could bring it out in 5 years' time.
Exactly, which is what I do with your stuff. And your stuff isn't like anyone else's.
I hope not. I try to be. I've always been like that, though. I hated being told to wear a uniform or being restricted. I won't wear black. I like things that are different and unique and special, like this, the fabric that I'm wearing.
Oh my God, that jacket! I actually need to rip it off you and put it on me.
That was woven for me. That fabric. That is so special. And the people who work for me, I only make about 30 of these. So the people who work for me, they can put a bit of love into things. It's not being mass produced. They're not sitting at machines just, you know, hammering it out all day. It's nice.
You know, when you make a business out of something you love,
yeah.
Does it sort of kill your love for it, or is it still fun?
No, it's fun when it goes well.
Yeah.
But
is it hard?
When you open a box and it's all wrong, it's just heartbreaking.
Like, wrong in what way?
Yeah, and also if it doesn't go so well, if something I think was amazing sits on the shelf and nobody else likes it except for me, you think, what am I doing in this business?
I interviewed Sally Obermeter this week, and I said, what have you learnt? Because she does Swish and she's got her label. And she said, I've learnt that people say that they love colour. They love looking at it, but they will not buy it. They buy black, white, grey, navy, and denim. From her.
Yeah, from her.
Yeah.
That's a bit different. I think for me, people come to me
learned?
because they know I don't bother doing black.
They come to you for the crazy.
Yeah, they do. And that's why when people come into the store and they want a T-shirt to go under their jacket, I'm like, I don't have a T-shirt. I don't wear T-shirts. I don't know the first thing about T-shirts. I'm never going to design you a T-shirt. There you are. People ask me for these basic things all the time. I'm like, that's not even in my head.
You are like the opposite of basic.
Yeah, I am the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you design stuff? How do you decide what to design? What have you got in your head?
It usually comes to me with the fabric or the embroidery or the colour, or so generally lately I've been working out of India, and those manufacturers come to me and I'll go to them with heaps of ideas, and they might bring the embroidery and I'll do the shape, or they'll bring the embroidery and I'll say that colour is crazy and we'll do a different colour. We just work together and it's really amazing. It's all in one day. So The last range I did with them before this one, I only had an hour on the train. So
oh my God.
Got on the train and just did. It's the ones with all the sparkle shoulders. You've got the grey jacket.
Yeah.
So that was
cake.
a range of about 10 pieces that I just did on the train. Trains are great.
Do you design for yourself?
Yeah.
Or do you think, okay, I need to do this because people like to buy?
No,
blah.
I only do things I want to wear. So I'm thinking about me. That's why I've used Laura Wells as a model this time around, because Laura Wells is an environmental activist, but she's a model, but she's a plus-size model.
She's one of those ridiculous things that she's called a plus-size model, and she's actually just the size of an average woman.
Well, she's got a tiny little waist. So
she's smaller than an average woman.
No, she has. No. She's probably a 14 in the waist. I'm a 12 to a 14 in the waist, but she's curvier in other places. Because she's curvier, you can dress her really well. She looks great. There was one of my dresses I put on her and I just went... And
but
that's
most
one I love
fashion
wearing.
people say... Yeah. The curves, you don't want any curves spoiling the lines of clothes. They should be like wire coat hangers. They should have no curves.
I use, one of my models is smaller. She's actually not a model. She's my friend Beck, who works in the Cronulla store. I'll use her things to hang really well on her. It is slightly easier to dress Beck than it is to dress Laura. But I design for me. I'm more like Laura than I am, so...
How old are you now? 43?
44.
44?
Yeah. So it's for me. And it's really funny when I get mums coming in and saying, I'll bring my daughter back. And I'm like, don't bring your daughter back. I don't want to hear. I don't know.
I love that. That's the opposite of how I feel when I go into Dotty or Sports Girl and I'm like, this place is not for me.
I know. I'm like, bring your mum back. And that's the other thing. Recently I posted a photo of a lady. She came into the store on a Friday afternoon and walked past with her father, who was 91. She was probably in the 60s. And she looked the best I've seen in one of my dresses of anybody. Now I'm stalking her. I want her to be my next model. She just held herself so elegantly. And, I like people who have character and a story to tell. And they're the people that I'll use as my models in my Instagram and on my website from now on. People I admire.
And more of you, please.
No, that probably won't happen.
But why?
Oh, because it's really hard to take a photo and be in it at the same time.
Yeah, true. You are good at taking the photos.
So budget-wise, it's easier for me to find.
Do you know what I've found is fantastic is boomerang? Just because it just...
Everyone looks good in a boomerang.
And also, clothes move. No one wants to stand there posing like a goose.
Yeah.
I mean, I shouldn't say goose, like a model, but unless you are a model, in which case you do that really well. But... regular people feel really uncomfortable standing still in clothes. It's like Caitlin Moran says she always pulls faces in photos because that's portrays her much better, more realistically than sort of doing some pouty duck face.
Yeah.
And I find that as well. Your clothes are to move in and have fun in, and they're also incredibly comfortable.
100%. I've started, I'm going to Mexico on Friday. I'm really excited with my husband who... It's going to destroy our holidays if I have to stand there and be in photos really still. So I think we've just decided we're just going to have to boomerang all around Mexico because it's too stressful.
Getting the perfect.
Whereas a boomerang,
you never take a bad boomerang because it's silly and it's fun.
There must be some flattering angle on boomerang.
Now, haven't you booked at a nudist resort?
Oh, stop it! My mother-in-law doesn't know this.
What have you done?
What have I done? Okay, so I saved. I didn't have to spend on my flights because I got them on my frequent flyer, and then all through Mexico because I've been there so many times before. I'll be doing it budget, and I do budget well in Mexico, you can. Then, so for the last 2 nights, I'm going to a place called Tulum, which is a place I've dreamed of going for years. It's got cenotes, which are underwater sinkhole caves.
Oh, wow.
And my favourite book opens and closes in those cenotes. So
what book?
It's called La Lacuna. It's by Barbara Kingsolver. And it's got Frida Kahlo woven into the text of the book. It's just beautiful. Anyway, so we've been dreaming of going there forever. So I thought, well, we'll stay somewhere really nice because we're not spending any money the whole rest of the time. So I booked the most beautiful eco resort. It's all made of recycled timber, and there's no electricity. It's all candlelit. It's just amazing. Then as soon as I paid the deposit, I got an email springing back at me to say, well, no photography because you've got to respect other people's nudity.
Oh, that's fantastic. So you're still going?
Yeah, I can't. I'll just wear a kimono the whole time and pretend I'm about to be naked. But then I was talking to my coffee guy and he was saying, you can't be clothed in a nudist. You'll just look like a perv.
Yeah, that's true. Hey, how's your Bell's palsy?
Oh, it's okay. When I'm tired, it's apparent. But
so that happened about 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2 years ago in July.
What happened?
Oh, I think it was stress. It was actually... it's been diagnosed as Ramsay Hunt, which is shingles on the facial nerve, which is brought on by stress. It was a very stressful time.
But on the inside, not the outside. Was this around the time that Gretel had her setback?
Yeah, absolutely.
And your face collapsed in response? Half of it.
Yeah, the two of us. I was ringing doctors. Can you come to us? We can't leave the house because I couldn't get her out of the house. And
you had it really badly, didn't you?
It was pretty it was pretty bad. But the best thing I did was drive, get out of... I live in Cronulla. It's a really small place. Everyone knows everybody, and I had to keep explaining and making people feel better and making sure they knew I hadn't had a stroke. So to get out of Cronulla was the best thing I ever did. And I just went for a road trip. I got in my combi and drove up to Byron, which sounds like a really hippie thing to do. I'm not really that much of a hippie, but it was the best thing. And I think there's something quite healing about Byron Bay. It's that, I believe in that. So I think I got better quite quickly because of that. I'm really nervous now when I get myself into stressful situations. I'm like, oh, God.
Will it come back?
Yeah.
Because I had it once, but much more mildly than you did. You had it quite badly, and you were very self-conscious.
I was only self-conscious for the first day or two. So I got Gretel to go to a doctor with me I think it was 2 days after it happened. And afterwards, she loves eating dumplings, so I took her to the local Chinese restaurant. And I was sitting opposite her and I thought, look, this is temporary. You've dealt with that without complaint for your whole life. What am I complaining about? And the other thing is I'm a whole lot more than my face. It was really good to realise that. I'm lucky. I think I'm pretty lucky. I've aged really well.
Yeah. Have you had Botox?
I have. I actually had it. This was probably
when
something
did you have it?
Oh, ages ago. But I had it
Your
after.
forehead looks really unlined. Can it move?
Yeah. This is ages ago.
Really?
But I did it after the Bell's palsy, and it was good because it evened up my features. So I think that was one of the things that helped me.
Before.
Yeah, I remember telling Luca. And
that's what they all say.
Luca came. Yeah, it's all Bell's palsy. Luca came into the shop one day and said hi, and I said, "Oh yeah, it was the Botox." But yeah, they were quite careful because one side was paralysed already.
Yeah.
So
they just had to even up the paralysis.
Yeah, I'm glad I did it though. I have no...
The Botox?
Yeah, I don't have any regret about that. I won't...
You going to do it again?
I don't know. If I start to feel like I need to or I want to, I would. But I'm not a Googler, so I don't really know what's in it. I know, I'm talking to the wrong person.
Just the most toxic poison in the world. But don't worry, I'm also considering it. I just wanted to end...
Yeah.
I saw you a few months ago, and it was around the time of that terrible case where that man basically murdered his whole family, his 2 children who had special needs and his wife and their dog and himself. And for a time there was it the 2 of them? Did they do it together? Was it just him? They didn't know. And I was talking to you about it and I said, I saw a 7:30 Report interview with friends of the wife and they said, oh, no, but she wouldn't have been her. She was so happy. She was so engaged in the school and she was so happy. And you said to me, people would say that about me.
Yeah.
You were very affected by that.
Yeah, I think we're all really good at smoke and mirrors. You know, you can be dying on the inside and, you know, really having a lot to cope with in your home life. But I find I think I'm quite flippant, and I you know, that's my way of coping. I don't take anything too seriously, you know, and I can get myself out of, you know, I can have the worst morning, but I can still find it funny.
And who knows about those dark times? Brett and the boys and your parents.
I don't think I have that many dark times. I'm deeply shallow.
You are quite deeply shallow.
I am. I'm so shallow.
But is that just an act?
That's probably just who I've become by not taking things too seriously, seeing the funny side, seeing the good. I think I just, you know, it can be a really dire time, but I find the funny, and that's my way of coping. Yeah.
Well, you're not just my style hero, babe.
Oh, stop it. Now you're going to make
You're
me
also my Botox hero. For giving me the excuse that I've needed.
Oh, you'll have to go and get Bell's palsy first.
No, I just have to say that I had it.
You'll have to just get it in one side.
To treat Bell's palsy. The Bell's palsy that I had 20 years ago. I need to treat with Botox.
Do you know my Bell's palsy side is my good side now? Because that's the side that didn't
I'm
move.
blind. It doesn't move.
Yeah, it's the best side. It's my photo side.
Send my love to Gretel and tell her I hope she remembers my birthday.
Oh,
no pressure.
No.
Thanks for listening. I nearly said thanks for listening to South of the Border. That's what's on my mind. Thanks for listening to No Filter. But if you want to go and have a look at South of the Border clothes, you can go to South of the Border, just Google South of the Border, or they're on Facebook and on Instagram. Or just look at my Instagram and look at everything I wear, basically. And a big smooch to Telstra Smart Home, the most fantastic app that helps you control your home through your phone from wherever you are at any time. Thank you, Telstra. We love you. We have lots more interesting, fascinating interviews with amazing people like Vanessa. If you go through the No Filter back catalogue, you can subscribe to any of our podcasts. We have about 18 now. The best place to do this, of course, is just by downloading the Mamma Mia podcast app. Or you can go to iTunes, look for No Filter, leave us a 5-star review or any review, because that's how other people find out about our podcasts and it helps us keep making them. If you can think of someone who'd like to listen to the interview you've just heard, please share it with them. There's a little, thingy in the top right-hand corner of your podcast app, and it says, you can click on it and it says share, and you can send it to someone via WhatsApp, you can send a link via text, via email, you can put it on your Facebook page. There are still a lot of people who don't understand podcasts and who don't know how to find them or even what they are. So sharing is caring. It helps us and it helps the people that we interview. You can buy my book. Go to miafriedman.com. All the links and information is there. It's called Work-Strife Balance. It's written with women like Vanessa and me in mind. This podcast was produced by Monique Bowley, who is the boss lady of podcasts at Mamma Mia. Holly Wainwright is the head of entertainment. And I'm Mia Friedman, your host and whatever else I might be, the voice in your ear right now. I will see you on the interweb. Lots of love. See you soon. Bye.
Hi ladies, my name is Charity and I'm calling because I wanted to know where the well had gone.
Oh, Robin, where have we been? Where have we been? Clearly not where we're supposed to be, which is on the well. And we're back, which is awesome.
It is awesome, and we can't wait to get into these big, juicy conversations again. Rob, we have got an amazing list of ideas for episodes.
Do you reckon, how many episodes do you reckon it'll take before we fundamentally disagree?
2.
It's my favourite thing.
If you want to be happier, healthier, and have more time for the things that matter, join us for the Well Wholehearted Conversations for a Better Life with me, Rebecca Sparrow.
And me, Robin Bailey, in iTunes, the Mamma Mia podcast app, and in your ears from Sunday, the 21st of May.